Okay, good morning, everybody, or afternoon, as the case may be. Today, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite characters in American history, one of my favorite presidents. He's not the most famous president that I like, but he is related to him. It's his cousin. The one I really like is Franklin. This is Theodore, and they both have the last name of Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt was a champion of the people. He was a president of our country during the turn of the century. And so he was a very popular president. He was very famous because of his dealings in the Spanish American War. He was a rough rider. He saw action in the first really global conflict that the United States had with a foreign country in in the modern age, where we declared war on Spain, and he fought with the American troops, the American Expeditionary Force in the or the Rough Riders in Cuba, and he came back a hero. Okay, so president, he went and he ran for presidency. He got elected president, and he was a champion of the people. He was a socialist person because he wanted to incorporate the government into doing work for the people or helping the people out. A progressive. This is the period where we have progressives. We have people like, Sinclair and the muckrakers that want to bring legislation and some kind of government control on some of the the things that were happening to the American population. And so he gets elected, and he puts out this plan in which he calls the square deal. Okay, and the square deal that he has and he proposes to the American public has to do with three things. So let's look at President Theodore Roosevelt's square deal. One of the first things he does in the square deal, by the way, it's called the three C's: control of corporations, conservation of natural resources, and the consumer protection issues that were brought up during this period. We all seen how, there was no government involvement in big companies and how they treated their employees. The natural resources were being overrun by big corporations. People would go out into virgin territories out west and just cut the trees down. There was no kind of regulatory government involvement in telling them people what they could and could not do. We also had miners that would just strip mine the mountains, and just natural resources were being plundered left and right. We also have consumer protection in his square deal, where he is concerned about the issues of hygiene. Okay, we talked a little bit about in previous videos about how during this period there was very little hygiene, especially among the big cities, sanitation issues. He was involved in the New York City, and how he started to implement some of the sanitation requirements needed in order to clean up the city. So we're going to hit with these things one at a time. This is a short video. It's not going to take very long. And we're going to start with the control of corporations. He realized that labor and the capitalists, the big guys, were always at each other. But it really came into a head when in 1902 there was a strike. The miners said, we've had it. We're not going to take it anymore. We're not going to mine coal. All right. And coal was essential during that period because people used coal in their furnaces in their homes in order to warm their homes up. And it was getting close to the winter. Well, if there's no coal, a lot of people are going to suffer. A lot of people are going to have issues. And so what he did in 1902, he intervened. He got involved in this strike. Holy, you know, God, this thing was never done before by any president. The government has never been involved in the capitalists or the social issues of the workers and the corporations, but he does. He gets involved. because he realizes that if they don't resolve this issue, there's not going to be any coal for the winter. So he gets them together, and he brings them to the White House, and he has a meeting in the White House where he mediates. Okay, Mr. Sordo, here we go again. You're using these words that we don't know anything about. What the heck is mediation? Mediation is when if there's you're like an umpire, okay? You're the guy that comes in there when two people are having a bout, or they're having a fight, or they're having an argument, and you try to mediate. You try to make things, work things out so everybody comes to an agreement. And he does this. He gets it. He gets involved, and in the square deal between the capital, the capitalists, and labor became his campaign slogan in the election of 1904. So this is where this comes in. This square deal that he offers the labor people and the the owners or the capitalists of the coal industry. All right, that is where he gets involved, and there's a lot of other involvements that he gets involved, but that's the main one. He gets involved in railroad issues, but this is the one that the anthracite coal strike is the one that he really goes out there and he resolves for the people because he was concerned. All right, so now we get into the conservation of natural resources. Like I said, Teddy Roosevelt was an outdoorsman. He loved the outdoors. He used to go out camping. He used to go out hunting. He used to do hiking. He used to climb mountains. This guy was all over the place. He liked to shoot. He liked to target practice, all this kinds of stuff. In this particular scene, we see him with John Muir, who is one of the naturalists of all times. He's the guy on the right side of your screen, and you can always tell Teddy because he was kind of big and like a big teddy bear. Okay, and by the way, that's where teddy bears get their name, from Teddy Roosevelt. So here we see him with John Muir at the Yosemite National Park, and if you look real close, right under me where I'm talking in this video, and I'll point it out to you, here is Yosemite Falls. This is out in California. This is a huge, beautiful park. It wasn't a park then, though. Theodore Roosevelt did and accomplished this legislation. This is something nobody had ever done. No president ever even taken interest in these places. But he does. And so he goes, and one of the things he does, look at all the things he does. He establishes the Newlands Reclamation Act of 1902. Okay, what the heck is that? It's a law which starts to reclaim the land by building dams, and all these kinds of things in order to conserve and not let the land waste itself or anybody come in there and do things to the land. Mainly, it was the Newlands Reclamation Act. It was building reservoirs in the Rocky Mountains and in these areas of mountains areas where you built dams to keep the reservoirs, keep water back, and use the water at a later point instead of having floods, which washes everything away. He established the United States Forest Service. These are the guys that are out there in the forest today. These are the guys that have these big watchtowers, and they look for, forest fires, and they're the rangers. These are called the forest rangers, okay? And he started the creation, or he created, excuse me, he created 5 national parks. We have one national park that I know of that I visited, and that's called Big Bend here in Texas. This is one of the ones. It's not one of the original ones that he did, but it led to the creation of other national parks. Okay, so this is another great thing he did. Uh, he established the first 51 bird reserves. In other words, prior to this, people would go out in the swamps in some of these places where you had these exotic birds and just shoot them. and they would pluck their feathers from the birds to make ladies' hats and all kinds of things. And they would practically wipe out some of these bird populations and made them extinct. Well, he went in there and says that you know what, you can't come in here, you can't be shooting these birds. This is going to be a bird reserve or a bird sanctuary. He created 51 of them. He created 4 game preserves, right? What is a game preserve? It's an area that is controlled by the government that you just can't go in there and start shooting animals, all right? You can't go in there and shoot Bambi, all right? You can't do that. You're going to have licenses. Everything is regulated. Uh, Prior to this, people just went out, started shooting animals just for the sport. We wiped out the buffalo. The herds of buffalo prior to Teddy Roosevelt were in the millions. Uh, People would go out there and just shoot buffalo just for fun. So he established these game preserves. Uh, 150 national forests. He created 150 national forests. In other words, the forests were now controlled by the U.S. government. You couldn't go in there and start chopping wood. You couldn't go in there and start lighting campfires. You burn the place down. They were controlled. They had forest rangers. They had people in there that you had to go through, or you had to get permits in order to do this. And in result, he actually the area of the United States that he placed under public protection equaled out in total to 230 million acres. Unheard of. A lot of the big corporations and lumbering companies and all this were kind of ticked off at this guy because now they could just go out there and start cutting trees down and all this stuff. He prevented that from happening. So these are the conservation of natural resources. One of the C's of the 3 C's of the Square Deal that Teddy Roosevelt implemented. Okay, and then we go to the last. We go to the consumer protection issues that we had at the period. We already talked about the muckrakers, and you see here in this cartoon where he is muckraking some of these people down here with his big old rake. He's raking them up, and this is like congressmen and big corporations and all these things. And you can see right there it says TR, Teddy Roosevelt, and this is the White House. And so this is a depiction of what he's doing to clean up basically some of these industries, starting with, yes, the regulations on meat packing. He implemented the Pure Food and Drug Act, and that passed. Which they went in there and like we talked before about Johnson or Sinclair and the jungle. Because of people like him, got Roosevelt's attention, so he went in and he started putting some kind of restrictions and some kind of rules in the meat packing industry. This has led to the Pure Food and Drug Act, and later became the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. The Bean Inspection Act of 1906 was another one that he put in place, and there's several, but these are the issues. These are the big ones. These are the ones that started everything. Now he gets involved in the sanitation issues. And Roosevelt, he served as honorary president of the American School Hygiene Association from 1907 to 1908. And in 1909, he convened the first White House conference on the care of dependent children. So he has, and these are usually women organizations that are concerned about children, they're concerned about schools, they're concerned about the hygiene, the typhoid fever rates that were happening in the country. They wanted to do something about it. He got involved. He got involved and he helped to clean up these big places, these big cities, these big dumps where the sanitation conditions were just atrocious. Okay, so short and sweet, Theodore Roosevelt. These are the things that he did. These are the things that are concerned with his Square Deal. Okay, thank you very much for listening to me. I hope you learned something today.